And coming up next on BBC World News America, the Prime Minister comes calling. Gordon Brown makes his first official visit to Barack Obama's White House, and the agenda is all about fixing the global economy. 6 weeks to the day after taking office, President Obama welcomed British Prime Minister Gordon Brown to the White House today. Meetings between leaders of these long-time allies often have a whiff of nervous, feverish teenage romance, at least for the Brits. Does he like me better than the last guy did, for instance? But with the world economy in total meltdown and both leaders desperate for solutions, you wouldn't think there'd be time for silly stuff like that. Or would there? The BBC's political editor, Nick Robinson, is travelling with Mr. Brown and filed this report.
Preparing for a first meeting with the most popular politician on the planet. Nothing was to be left to chance. This was a trip that had to be a success. He wants the names of Brown and Obama to be linked in history, like Thatcher and Reagan. Perhaps, though, not like Blair and Bush. And today at the White House, there was no love-in between President and Prime Minister. It was more a brief and nervy first date.
Where are the Brits? They're over there, huh?
In fact, they're everywhere.
Are they? They're spread
The
out?
Brits were in the Oval Office, where Churchill's bust once stood. What they wanted to know is whether the man who removed it still cared about us.
Mr. President, it's often been said that you, unlike many of your predecessors, have not looked towards Europe, let alone Britain.
This notion that somehow there is any lessening of that special relationship is misguided. Great Britain is one of our closest, strongest allies, and there is a link, a bond there that will not break.
What, though, of the bond between them? Is their relationship special?
I'd like to think that our relationship is terrific. And I'm sure he won't dispute me in front of me anyway.
There are, he went on, a shared set of values and assumptions.
I don't think I could ever compete with you at basketball. Perhaps tennis.
Tennis? I hear you got a game.
Yeah, we could maybe have a,
we haven't
have
tried
a shot.
it
I don't know if you. I think you'd be better. But there we are.
But on this of all days, there's little to joke about.
Wall Street is plummeting. 12 years of increases simply wiped out. Where is the bottom?
No one blames the new occupant of the Oval Office for this economic crisis, but Gordon Brown is feeling under mounting pressure to apologise for his role in what's gone wrong over the past decade.
Your Chancellor has said overnight that it is our collective responsibility. All of us have to have the humility to accept that over the last few years things have got out of alignment. Is that a form of apology from the government?
The answer was no.
We've just been talking, Barack and I, about the need for proper supervision of shadow banking systems, of areas where there was bank practices that were unacceptable. So we've learned from what has happened over these last 10 years.
Lessons that Gordon Brown now believes he has Barack Obama's support to put right when world leaders meet in London in April.
And I spoke to Nick just after he filed that report from outside the White House. Nick, am I right in thinking that Prime Minister Gordon Brown was a little bit nervous on his first date?
He looked extraordinarily nervous, very edgy there in the Oval Office. He knows, frankly, how much there is at stake for him. His own poll ratings have plummeted. Obama, meanwhile, is the most popular politician on the planet. And part of what the Prime Minister wanted today was just to share a little bit of that magic dust that surrounds the new president. He also, of course, wanted substantial gains to be able to get presidential endorsement for what he calls a global New Deal, a package of measures to be unveiled in April at a London summit of the G20, that organisation, that club of world leaders, which it is hoped will back an economic stimulus, more regulation of the banks and the financial sector, and a reform of the world's financial institutions.
We talk an awful lot about the special relationship on the other side of the pond. They don't, quite frankly, on this side. What is the point of the special relationship these days?
Well, in a sense, there is no point, and there is, as you say, some absurd posturing about language, nervousness back at home when the White House started to talk about special partnership, not special relationship. Nervousness too because Barack Obama decided to return the gift given to President George Bush of a bust of Churchill that was had pride of place in the Oval Office. He's replaced it with a bust of Lincoln instead. Nervousness because Barack Obama looks, it's always claimed, to Asia rather than to Europe, partly, of course, because of his own personal heritage. There is always an anxiety that Britain somehow is part of America's past and not of its future. That's why the words matter, but in reality, the words matter not a jot. It is whether the President and the Prime Minister have a bond, whether they agree on policy.
And we all know what happens when you put Winston Churchill in a box and send him back to England. Absolutely nothing. Nick Robinson, thanks very much. President Obama could be forgiven for pushing foreign policy, even of the economic variety, to the back burner for a bit, because the dire economic problems here in the US are piling up by the day. Today, his full economic team was deployed, with the boss in the lead, of course. Britain's Prime Minister Gordon Brown already bagged the diplomatic prize of being the very first European leader to visit President Obama at the White House. Today, he travelled to the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue to address a joint session of Congress, following in the footsteps of Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair. In a wide-ranging speech, the Prime Minister focused heavily on the economic hurricane that he said the world is facing, but also took time to give a pep talk to an ally that he called both indispensable and irrepressible. Here's Justin Webb.
The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
It is an honour to address both houses of Congress, an honour and an opportunity to meet and greet and impress, an opportunity for Gordon Brown to try to persuade America's politicians that America first is not the answer in this global crisis. He started with the easy stuff, a knighthood for Senator Edward Kennedy and a warm endorsement of British-US friendship.
Alliances can wither or be destroyed, but partnerships of purpose are indestructible. Friendships can be shaken, but our friendship is unshakable. Treaties can be broken, but our partnership is unbreakable. And I know that there is no power on earth that can ever drive us apart.
But later in the speech, Mr. Brown got into tougher stuff. What the Prime Minister tried to get Congress to do was think globally. He's talked of global solutions to global problems in the past. Today he talked of the need for financial regulation that affected the whole world. He talked of open markets and rejected protectionism. And he talked of the promise of green technology in which America could lead the way. This Congress has toyed with protectionism, a Buy America clause in the stimulus bill, new restrictions on the hiring of foreign workers. But the world, Mr. Brown told them, was interwoven.
Should we succumb to a race to the bottom and to a protectionism that history tells us that in the end protects no one? No, we should have the confidence, America and Britain most of all, that we can seize the global opportunities ahead and make the future work for us.
There was no applause, but he pressed on, pleading with America's political leaders to see opportunity in cooperation, and in a populist passage, he finally found support.
And you're also restructuring your banks. So are we. But how much safer would everybody's savings be if the whole world finally came together to outlaw shadow banking systems and outlaw offshore tax havens?
The Prime Minister's pitch ended with a plea.
Let us renew our special relationship for our generation and our times. Let us work together to restore prosperity and protect this planet. And with faith in the future, let us together build tomorrow today.
He was warmly received. He has made an impression. But has he won an argument? Will America do what he wants? In April, when the world's richest nations meet in London, we will find out. Justin Webb, BBC News, Washington.